Morning, everyone. Hope you guys are having a great Monday so far. I wanted to come to you really quickly, as I usually do, and give you just a few brief reminders, a couple to keep in mind for this week, and then, of course, a couple to keep in mind as we're moving forward with the course. As you all note, we are getting toward the end of the spring semester in total, which means we are getting toward the end of our class. Things are going to start coming up, needing to be due pretty regularly throughout the rest of the semester. So I do want to give you guys a couple of things to think about going into this week and, of course, moving forward. So the first thing I want to bring to your attention is your Unit 5 writing assignment. That is due this Friday, April 5th by 5 o'clock to the Dropbox, the appropriate Dropbox, which you're already familiar with how that works. Please make sure that as you're working on this, and some of you probably already are, make sure that you're reading all of the instructions, following all of the guidelines for it. And if there's anything that as you're reading through guidelines or as you're working on the paper that you have a question about, please feel free to reach out to me. As I've told you all semester, of course, I have my office hours on Fridays from 2 to 4, but of course I'm also available throughout the week as well. I do check in with the course at least once a day, just to see if you all have any emails from you, if there's any concerns, things like that. So please, again, as you're working on this last writing assignment, please make sure to keep in mind all the guidelines and reach out if you have questions about anything. It could be large or small. Going along the lines of talking about writing assignments, I do want to spend just a few minutes in talking about the feedback that I've been giving to you. So you all know, or most of you know, that I do give pretty detailed feedback with writing assignments, although you probably noted that moving from the Unit 3 to the Unit 4 that I just finished grading, I did give you a little bit less feedback throughout the actual body of your paper. The end comment, I'll always give you a pretty extensive end comment, but the amount of feedback I give you in the paper proper is going to become a little bit less, and you'll notice that there will be a decrease moving from the Unit 4 one that you just completed to the Unit 5 that'll be due at the end of this week. A couple of things I do want to make note of. So for this last writing assignment, a good number of you did a pretty good job of covering the things that the assignment called for, specifically looking at themes and symbols and things like that. In Unit 5, we'll ask you to do some things, I believe, similar to that, along those lines. But one of the things I do want to really encourage you all to keep in mind, as you're going through and you're formatting your introductory paragraph and you're thinking about how to introduce the text, and then of course how to get down to what the main point or your thesis statement, your argument is going to be for that paper, make sure that if there is something very specific within the assignment guidelines that it calls for, such as pinpointing a theme, pinpointing a symbol, or something like that, make sure that you are mentioning that really clearly in the introduction paragraph and specifically hammering it home for your reader in the thesis statement. Keep in mind, the thesis statement is the guidepost for the paper. Let your reader know exactly where you're going to be taking them throughout your paper, regardless of how long it is. So if there's essential information, such as a symbol or a theme that you're going to be discussing or referring to regularly, that's going to pop up in your paper, you need to make sure that that is front-loaded and given a pretty clear presence in that in the introduction paragraph, and specifically your thesis statement. Also, there are still some grammar things that are popping up in your papers. I am noticing less, though, so a good number of you are working to improve on some of the things I've noted several times. So, again, do keep in mind all of the feedback that I've given to you in Unit 3 and Unit 4 related to grammar, especially as you move into Unit 5. Again, the goal with any paper is to produce an error-free writing as possible. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not going to be some issues. I've been writing for a long time in English and, of course, in other disciplines, and I still have issues. Everybody does. But the goal should be that you take all the feedback that I've given to you up to this point and continue to work to improve on those issues with the goal of producing a paper that is as error-free as possible. And of course, keep in mind too all of the different resources that I've made available to you, both in our course, but also some things that you might be aware of elsewhere that can help you out with different grammar issues that you might encounter. And the last thing I want to mention is MLA formatting. So a good number of you are still struggling with this, both in terms of how to format the actual header of your paper, your name, professor's name, your page number, last name and page number, in-text citations, works cited pages, things like that. I've already given you all a link last week to Alert Purdue. Please utilize that website. It is a great resource that will help you out with anything related to MLA. Also, if you've clicked around there enough, it does have some information about how to construct a good thesis statement, how to deal with different grammar issues. It's basically a one-stop shop when it comes to all things writing. It's basically like having a writing handbook available to you. The only difference is you don't have to pay for Alert Purdue. It's available to you through public access on the internet. So do make use of Alert Purdue, specifically when you're working with MLA formatting. I am going to be making note of that, as I have been. Again, I know that formatting is not the most fun thing in the world to think about or to worry about, but it is important that you keep in mind exactly what the formatting should be for our assignment. And of course, this is also applicable to other classes where you may have to do formatting. So those are the things to keep in mind with feedback. And again, keep in mind, if you haven't been reading my feedback, please go in and begin doing so. I did post a video a couple of weeks back that tells you how to go about clicking into your submission and looking at the feedback via Turnitin. And of course, keep in mind that there is always an incentive associated with you doing that. So if you have been taking advantage of that, know that that's still available. If you have not, please go take a look at the feedback as soon as you possibly can. And then the very last thing I want to mention to you is making up work. Most of you are doing very, very well in the class. Most of you are keeping up with all the writing assignments and the discussion boards and things like that. But there are a couple of you who are falling a little bit behind. And the problem with falling behind at this point in the semester is that if you fall too terribly far behind, it's going to be hard to get caught up. I will work with you, of course, but it does become a little bit problematic to get caught up in a reasonable time frame. So if you are missing an assignment, either in whole or in part, and you would like to go about making up that assignment or that part of that assignment, email me and let me know exactly what you need to make up, and we will get a timeline set out by which you can do so. Now, anything that you will make up will result in point deduction. It just will, because a lot of things up to this point are substantially late. But I am still willing to work with you to give you some points. Again, a 50 is better than a 0. A 60 is better than a 0. It will help your grade out to have something in place of a place where you have a 0 currently than to just have the 0 be there. I think that's everything for right now. If you have any questions throughout the week, please let me know. I'll be happy to answer any of your questions and provide any clarification I can for anything. I will be available for office hours this Friday from 2 to 4, so do know you can reach out to me then. And until then, I look forward to seeing your work throughout the week. Thanks, folks.